All right, everybody, welcome to those of us who are a little early. We're going to get started in just a minute here. All righty, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. My name is Sammy Focarino. I'm the Senior Events Manager here at Consensus, and I'm going to be your moderator for today's session. This webinar is presented by Consensus. Consensus is leading the world into the new era of demo automation. Our platform gets your buyers what they need when they need it. It then multiplies your revenue team's impact with unique insights on those buyers. As a result, you'll see faster close times, larger deals, and higher close rates. You can learn more at goconsensus.com. We had an absolutely amazing time at our largest event of the year, DemoFest, which is a virtual event we held last month. And all of the sessions, recordings from this event, there's like over 40 sessions, are still live in the platform. So if you registered to attend, you can use that same link. Or if you want to see the recordings, you can register still at the link that I'll post here in the chat to get access to all of the recordings from that event. At Virtual DemoFest, we announced that we're going to be bringing DemoFest back on the road again as DemoFest X. We were in San Francisco earlier this year in March, and we're coming to London in October and New York City again in November. John spoke at our event last year, so we're hoping we can get him back on one of those agendas maybe. So we hope that you will register to join us. You can register at demofest.com for those events. We encourage you to participate in today's webinar. Our speaker will answer any questions at the close of the session, but you're welcome to post your questions at any time through the Q&A box on the right side of your console. If at any time you're having technical difficulties, press the help button on the right side of your screen. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker. John Kerr is the author of the highly successful book, Mastering Technical Sales, the Sales Engineer's Handbook. The book has been described as the ultimate how-to manual for pre-sales engineers and their leaders, and is now an integral part of new hire development at many technology companies. To date, over 35,000 students have been trained in his professional skills curriculum. And with that, I am going to turn the rest of the time over to you, John.
Great. Thank you for doing that, Sammy. And there we go. There's my lovely granddaughter, Morgan, saying hello to everybody. So welcome to Forget About the Pain, What About the Gain? A somewhat different way of looking at business value discovery. So this is me, John Kerr. As you can see, my hairline is a little different from what you see up there. Contrary to some of the rumors, I did not retire. I did not die or get sick. My wife and I actually spent the last 5 months sailing around the world. And I haven't had time to get a haircut yet since I got back. So you're going to have to put up with the flowing locks. Okay, so forget about the pain. What about the gain? So I'm going to encourage you to look at discovery, both technical discovery and business value discovery, a little bit better. Now, we've all heard the phrase, right? No pain, no gain. It's very common when you go to the gym, in sports, life in general. Over the years, I've had a few bosses say that to me, and people who've been working for me. And I guess if there's one theme of this entire seminar, it's the fact that that is just not true. No pain, no gain. I'm going to differentiate between the two and teach you why gain is so important, and you can't just keep banging on around pain. Now, Sammy gave me that great introduction. So for those of you who know me, hey, I see some familiar names in the attendee list. It's great to be back and to see you again. For those of you who don't, I am the author and managing director of a company called Mastering Technical Sales. About a year ago, we merged with a company Up to Speed, and we now truly have the leading global company that works with professional skills for sales engineers or solution architects, whatever you want to call it. I actually started life as a chemical engineer many years ago, accidentally fell into the SE profession, as most of us have done over the years. And wow, about 20 years ago now, more than that, wrote the book, mainly because I was so frustrated that I couldn't find anybody to teach me and the few hundred SEs that I had working for me at the time, professional skills. So that's kind of how we got started. Down the bottom, you see a bunch of the companies that I have worked for over the years. That's not a customer list. In addition to what I do now, I have two other amazing jobs. Right on the very first slide, you met my oldest granddaughter, Morgan. This is my youngest granddaughter, Riley. So my job number two is pops to these wonderful young ladies. And then job number three is my wife and I actually spend quite a bit of time working. We have a charitable foundation now, and we work with a number of charities around the US helping the less fortunate. So that's me. That's what I do. Now, back to the seminar. It's all about you. If you've been through one of our classes before, you might remember this concept that we have called Monday morning behavior. And the way it works is this. We've all been to training classes, to seminars, we go through the classes, and maybe a month from now, you might remember one cool thing, and you've forgotten everything else. And it's kind of a waste. It's a waste of your brain power, it's a waste of your time. So we have this concept called Monday morning behavior, or MMB, to use the acronym. And the way it works is this. Anytime in the next 45 minutes, you see something, you hear something, you get an idea about something that you'd like to do differently, then write it down, either digitally or physically with the pen, and then put a plan in place to make it happen. If you're comfortable, even review it with your boss or the account team that you work with. I'll point out a few examples of these Monday morning behaviors. Doesn't matter how you spell it, whether you or not, and in some parts of the world, it's actually Sunday morning behaviors. If you do this, I guarantee that you are four times more likely to remember the outcomes and the great ideas that we're going to be presenting to you in this seminar than if you just sit there and go, that's kind of nice. So let's get to it. First thing, get this chat here, there we go. Okay, so first thing, there's all kinds of sales methodologies out there. This one over on the left, the qualified sales leader, that's a big one now from John McMahon, very popular. John and I were on a podcast about 6 months ago. He lives down in Florida, close to me. In the middle, we have the Challenger sale, famous, on the right, good old solution selling. But here's the thing. Every single one of those methodologies focuses on pain. It's find a problem, find the issues, solve the issues, and the customer's going to give you money. And you know what? If only it was that easy. And these sales methodologies really don't differentiate from one another in doing that. And I often say that as a sales engineer or solution architect, whatever you want to call yourself, it really doesn't matter what sales methodology the sales team follows, as long as they follow one, because that then gives you some discipline in the sales cycle. It gives you some common terminology, and it also enables you to use the sales methodology as the bad cop rather than you or your SE leadership being the bad cops. So each and every one of these sales methodologies, every sales methodology in the world talks about pain. And it doesn't even stop there, because what we also see is there's like 50,000 boring articles on LinkedIn and posts on Twitter, X, about how to find pain better. And many of the new SE pundits who have come along in the last 18 months, they bang on about this and they give you different ways of talking about pain. And yeah, it's important that you find pain. But, and this is what we're going to work on, it's also important to find gain. And in fact, that's one of the things that can differentiate you from all the other sales engineers out there and all the other sales teams out there, is the fact that you are going to be looking for gain and something positive and not just fixing pain. So how's that going to work? What are we going to look at today? Well, three main things. One is, we'll talk about pain. So we're actually going to describe or give you a definition, the sales engineer's version of pain, exactly what that is. So that gives us our baseline. Then we're going to look at the emotional power, the empathy, the trust, as it were, of discovering gain and satisfying the hopes and dreams of your customers. And then lastly, we're going to have a little bit of fun and a practical experiment and play a few games. I'm going to ask you to interact with me and discover that pain and gain and the balance between them is something that's distinctly personal, and you need to be conscious of it with every person that you work with. So that's where we're going to start. So let's get going. The sales engineer's version of pain. So we like to think of pain as three different versions of it. So the first one is what we call latent pain. Now, latent pain is an issue, a problem, challenge, whatever word you want to use, that either the customer doesn't know exists or it's one that they ignore. It's not that bad. We've seen this every single day. In fact, you probably go on a number of sales calls every week, and the customer is describing their infrastructure, their architecture, and you're looking at it and you say, wow, that's a really big problem they have. And the customer doesn't even see it. The example I like to use, and this is where I'm the first example of interaction with me, is I use a classic example, personal one of me, medical thing. So I have a pain behind my right knee, right? I'll actually get up and I'll show you the right knee, right? Here we go. Oh, here, check out the t-shirt. So I have a pain behind my right knee. It's not that bad. No one is really ever likely to convince me to go to the hospital or the doctor and get an MRI or an X-ray of it. So it's latent pain. It's something that I just live with. But here's my challenge to you, and please do this in the chat. What are some things that you could try saying to me that might persuade me to go take action and have somebody look at my knee or get it fixed? So open season in the chat. What can you say to me to convince me to take action and get my knee fixed? So let's see what you come up with. Type away. So Ashley says, when you love to run and chase your grandkids. Right. Okay. Nick is going down the same route. Right. Okay. Corinne says, oh, we're typing a lot here. Okay. Corinne says, your life would be more enjoyable if you fixed your knee. Okay. Right. What activities can you not do because of this pain? Have you been on any hikes lately? Others like you, it inhibits them from working. There's nothing wrong with not working. Sean, how satisfied are you with your knee working? Okay. If your pain goes away, Curie says, what will you be able to do? So notice already there's two distinct versions of this. Right? Okay. Usually somebody says, I knew somebody and they died because they had this knee problem. So version one is you're trying to make the pain worse and make the pain more, tangible in my brain. So I want to fix it. And the other thing that you're doing, and this is really where we're going in this seminar, is you're making me think about some things that I'm missing. So being able to go on hikes, being able to chase my grandchildren to go swimming with them. Okay? So we've already seen a little bit of a distinction here between pain and gain. Sadly, in the sales world, often if we see one of these latent pains, and that's the sales engineer and the account exec, both work to try and make that pain more painful and more tangible for the customer. Yet sometimes you kind of need to get the customer to step away from it and actually look at what they might be able to do instead. So that's latent pain. So thanks for that. The next one along is going to be current pain. And current pain is one that we're used to right now. It's something that the customer is fully aware of. It hurts, make it go away. Okay? So we love current pains. They're really kind of easy things for us to deal with and sell into, and that's what we're taught to find. The third one is a little more nuanced. It's what we call vision pain. So vision pain, it's kind of a positive thing. It's an issue that the customer, either by themselves or with your help, kind of trusted advisor here, anticipates might happen in the future, and they want to fix it now, right? Let's plan ahead. So that might be, mergers and acquisition, compliance, expanding into a new market, going into a new country, a competitor moving into the market in the next 12 to 18 months, government regulations, all these kind of things. So that's the three kinds of pain, and that's what we're taught to look for when we're dealing with customers, right? So a problem they don't know about that we can go and help them fix. A current pain they do know all about, and it's usually the reason that you are in the room. And then there's vision pain, something that may happen in the future that you can help them deal with now. So one kind of interesting Monday morning behavior for you right now is when we're done with this seminar, take a look at the pipeline of the deals that you are working on and categorize them and give it an L, a C, or a V. Is it a latent pain that you're selling into, a current pain, or a vision pain? Some deals might have two or even three, and look at the spread or the blend that you have. Okay? And ideally, you want a mix of latent, current, and vision pains. If everything that you have is latent pain, then yeah, you can hit your number, but it's going to be really hard work for you and the rep this year. So kind of look for the blend of those deals across and see what you're going to do with it. So that's kind of first takeaway here is, there are certainly different kinds of pains. And we've touched a little bit on gains. So let's go a little bit further about why this is so important. So that will throw out there, working with technology companies over the years, and even some non-tech companies, people sell solar panels, heat pumps, things like that. When we examine their pipeline, we discover that 41%, right? So huge number, 2 in 5, 41% of deals get won by this company no one's ever heard of, right? Do Nothing Incorporated, 41%. So that's a huge chunk of revenue. So just think about that. 100 million in the pipeline, 40% of it disappears. It doesn't get won by you. It doesn't get won by your competition. It just poof, disappears. And often it's easier to chase some of that 41% and win that business than it is to get into a fist fight, a knife fight with your competition. So let's look at a little bit of the math behind this and give you the so what of why it is important to start looking for gain and to understand Do Nothing Incorporated. So I'm going to pick up my iPad here, and I'm going to do some drawing on the iPad. And I've also cheated and thrown a few things up here to get started. So if you've got 100 million in the pipeline, right? So 100 million up there, 40 million of it gets lost to Do Nothing Incorporated. Right? So we're engineers, we can do the math. That means that 60 million of it, someone wins it. So check mark there, nobody wins that. Now, let's be charitable and assume that of the active, fully qualified deals where the customer is actually going to buy something, you win 50% of it. That's a pretty high aggressive figure. So that's 30 million that you win out of 100 million. So right here, you immediately see why VPs of sales talk about having 3-to-1 coverage in the pipeline, right? You need to hit 30 million, you need 90 to 100 million in pipeline in order to achieve that. So that's basic math that's been around forever. But here's the difference that seeking gain can make. And you'll discover some statistics around it earlier, but these are verifiable figures that we have found from our customer base, large and small. If you don't just focus on pain, but you also seek the gain, you can get somewhere around an additional 4 million on top of that 30 million. And then from Do Nothing, you can get about 25% of those deals back, right? So 25%, that's 10 million. So suddenly, we'll change color here, we'll go back to blue. You've got 30 million that you started with, the 10 million additional that you got from D&I, the 4 million from the win rate, and suddenly the 30 million that you have as closure goes up to 44 million. This is the power of looking for gain and not just seeking pain. So you're probably sitting there saying, hey, John, these are great figures. It's back of the envelope calculation. How do we actually do that? So great questions. Let's see how that works. So we've now defined pain. Let's look for the emotional power of discovering gain. So the quote down there, don't gain the world and lose your soul. Wisdom is better than silver and gold. Still doesn't help you hit quota though. So the emotional power of discovering gain. So here's the issue that we face. As sales engineers, solution architects, working with our account executives, many of us suffer from what one of our other customers jokingly calls premature solutioneering. And that is when we start talking about our solution, product, services, whatever you want to call it, way before we actually understand the problem that we're supposed to fix or the end results that we are supposed to achieve. Because we love talking tech. And actually, this is more of a crime that sales engineers do than salespeople do. So how can we fix this? Well, turns out that to establish value, which is not what we're all about, there's so many companies now that are creating value engineering organizations, you actually have to step back away from your solution and you have to look for pain, right, which we're all really good at, or you need to look for gain. And here's the statistics behind that. 80% of the time, so 80% of deals get driven by pain. So the customer has a problem, either something tangible that they know about or something a little less tangible, one of those latent pains. 80% of the time, that's what drives the transaction. But 20% of the time, they're driven by gain. Okay? One of my other customers calls this, puppy dogs, unicorns, sunsets, walks on the beach. 20%. So being able to find pain better than the other guys and gals, that could be the difference between making you an average SE and a good SE. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to move from being a good SE to a absolute rock star SE, this is what makes the difference, right? Being able to find that 20% of deals that get driven by gain. Because what you start to do is establish a powerful emotional connection between both yourself as the sales engineer and your portfolio back to something positive happening with the customer. Now, this sounds a little, left coast, touchy-feely, emotional kind of stuff, yet the data is out there proving that it happens time and time and time again. So that 20% differentiator, right? That's what drove those blocks in the slide 3 or 4 slides ago, makes a major difference. So let's look at an example of this. So you're sitting in front of your customer, and the customer says, we need a better way to move our legacy SAP systems into the cloud, right? Can you help us? So imagine you're working for a vendor that can actually do something in this area. What do you think? Very quickly in the chat, do you think this is pain, or you think this is gain, or too early to tell? So pain, gain, too early to tell. Right. Those of you putting stuff in the chat, make sure you're sending it to everybody and not just hosts and panelists. All right. So most of you are being typically, typical engineers, right? It's too early to tell. I don't know. Which is absolutely the right answer. So it could be something that's driven by pain because what they have isn't working now, or they just could recognize that they need to do something better in the future because there are plans coming up. Again, just because of that 80%, 20%. If you absolutely had to guess, which is a crime for sales engineers, you would go for pain rather than gain. But at this point, I just say, it's too early to tell. So let's move on a little bit and look at the basic technique to uncover pain versus uncovering the gain. So, two ways to do this. So we call this reversing or stepping back away from your portfolio, because the key here is not to talk about your stuff. It's actually to get the customer to start talking about their pains, their hopes, their dreams, current state, future state, everything like that. So two things to do here. One is you either look for current state, pain, right, and get the customer to talk about their problems and issues, or you start thinking about the future state, and that's the gain, what things are going to be like in 6, 12, 18 months, and that's the results and the outcomes of what might happen, not only if they fix this problem, but move on from it. So that's a little abstract. So let's put that into practice now. So, all right, another piece of interaction here. So you're going to have to type a sentence in. So get your fingers warmed up. Customer says this mouthful to you. We're looking for a unified approach that is broad, integrated, and automated. We need to reduce and manage the attack surface through integrated broad visibility, stop advanced threats through integrated AI-driven breach prevention, and reduce complexity through automated operations and orchestration. Right, so you're obviously some cybersecurity vendor here. Can you help us? So let's look for pain, right? So classic training, what is a question that you might ask the customer, or how might you respond to the customer if they say this to you? So in the chat, how could you respond to the customer if positively, but you're looking for pain? Okay. And by the way, while you're typing that, if you think I made this up, I didn't. I actually ripped this off the web page of a vendor out there, did a little creative editing, improved the grammar and put it up here. So this is not made up. Okay. So we've got, right, what's that going to help you achieve? Okay, how are you doing this now? Are you able to do it today? Tell me more about the issues this is causing for you. What's not working with your current solution? And so this is all classic training, right? Nothing particularly difficult here. You're asking questions and it's basically, tell me more, tell me more. Now, okay, how is this surfacing in your day-to-day operation? What metrics help to measure success? All right, Kevin, you're kind of getting to the next slide here. Cool. So the customer says, can you help us? Right, that's a direct question. So first thing, little tip for you, when you can, spoken as a former executive here, always start with a yes, or a no if that's appropriate, right? So yes, we can. You can throw in other things like that's just in our sweet spot. We've helped thousands of customers do that, but try and start with something positive. So yes, we can. We've got several offerings in that area. Could you share with me some of the issues you've been experiencing with stopping advanced threats and utilizing automated operations and orchestration? Right? And you hand it back to the customer and you start the conversation. So nothing particularly complicated here. This is what we're taught to do. This is what salespeople are taught to do, business development, everybody else. So this is the 80% of transactions, nothing particularly difficult here. So now, same question. So I'm not going to read it again. But now we're going to look for gain instead. So the customer asks you the same thing, right? We're looking for, can you help us? What is a question, or what is a response rather, you could give the customer that would start seeking gain or get them talking about something positive? So case is a little way there, right? If you could do all these things, what does the goal look like to you? So again, in the chat, what's your response? Okay. While that's going in, hey, Sammy, if you are listening, for some reason, I can only send messages to hosts and panelists and not to everybody out there.
Let me, oh, okay, I just edited it for you. You
Okay,
should be able
thanks.
to, sorry about that.
That's okay. All right. So, okay, we got lots of ifs here, right? So if you could apply this unified approach, what doors will open? What would be able to do that you can't do now? Okay. If our tool took care of this, what other initiatives could you spend time on? Right? What's the outcome? Right? All right. Tell me what that means for you as a business. Right, that's nice and direct, Nikki. Like that one. Yes, we can. All right. Nice job, Art. All right. Yes, we can. What measurements do you expect to impact? If you could solve this for you, what new opportunities would you focus on? Okay. Yeah. All right. If we fulfill these needs, how will you now spend the time that you're going to be saving, says Tyler. All right. So these are all awesome responses, but notice they're all very positive, gain-oriented responses. So, here's kind of a John version of this. Can you help us? Yes, we can. A few thoughts about that. Looking ahead, let's say it's 12 months from now, what benefits do you see if you could integrate AI and automated diagnostics that you can't do today? So what you're doing is you are literally, figuratively, walking the customer into the future, hand in hand, if necessary, with reassurance, and getting their head out of the current problem, leading of the problem of the pain, and get them to raise their head and look out into the future and think about all the good things that could happen once the pain goes away. Because it's important here, a gain is not an opposite of a pain. It can just sit there all by itself. So this is how to seek gain, is you get the customer talking about the future and what would happen once a problem is solved, once it goes away, once they freed up, 3 or 4 new people because they're not working on all the old stuff, what would then happen? I mean, I can tell you as a former CIO that I had a list of projects that I would love to dedicate my people to if they didn't spend all their time like fixing day-to-day things. So that's the kind of empathy thought process that you want to have going through with your customers. Now, I call this the art of time travel, in that what you are doing is you are getting your customer to think 6, 9, 12 months down the road, and you are establishing that powerful emotional connection between your portfolio and puppy dogs, unicorn sunsets, walks on the beach that are happening in the future. What we've shown is that this is a great way to not only take out your competition, but also if you are competing against Do Nothing Incorporated, this is a great way to take Do Nothing Incorporated sometimes out of the equation by, instead of focusing on latent pains and trying to make them current pains, what you're doing is you're selling the vision and associated with gains as well. And that's how you can get additional money and revenue, by focusing on gains and not just on pains. Now, you can say, but John, right, we've learned over the years, hope is not a strategy. Okay? And yeah, that's true. But hope is a very powerful emotion. There have been, as an example, over the last 50 years, tons of politicians who have been elected on the basis of hope, right? And selling hope and selling good things that are going to happen in the future. Elect me and my party, we will do this. So you are, in essence, looking for the hopes and dreams of your customer, whether it's at an individual contributor lesson, right? Now, I hope I never have to come in on a Sunday afternoon again, or network in at 4 o'clock to go fix some problems because this will make it go away, all the way up to a senior executive who can now potentially focus on a different area of strategy for their customer. So hope is a sales strategy. You can't just hope you're going to get a deal, but you can light up the hopes and dreams of your customers. And that's really what this technique is all about. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with this for a few minutes and try it. Okay. So I think you're all pretty good on the pain. So let's look for the gain. I'm going to throw a few examples up here. And again, in the chat, I just like you to respond with what your answer might be. So for number one, we need to shut down our 2 data centers in the next 19 months. Can you help us? So you can ask all kinds of questions about where are the data centers and what are the applications and everything else. But what might you ask to try and find some gain around this statement? So in the chat, let's see what you can come up with, right? So you're seeking gain when the customer says this to you. Okay. So why do you need to shut down the data centers? Okay, so that's a current state. Curie says, what will be the cost savings? Okay, so that's still a little bit current state pain. Pan says, what benefits are you hoping to realize after you shut them down? Okay, Ashley, all right, started with a yes. Way to go, Ashley. Yes, we can help with that. Is there a cost you can recapture by doing this? Okay, that's still a little situational. When you shut down the data centers, what shortfalls do you anticipate that you will need to fill? Okay. Okay. How will this help you in the near term and over the next year? All right. So art's walking people into the future a bit there. Yes. What are the benefits you're trying to gain by shutting them down? Okay. Okay. You mind me asking, what's your end goal with shutting them down so I can understand your future goals? No, Bob. Go ahead and ask. So you see what people are doing. So I'm trying to change your mindset and get you to think about the future. Now, you could be like really, super direct with this and say, John, let's imagine it's 19 months from now, maybe only 16 or 17 because you work faster and those data centers are shut down. What are some things that you and your team or your company will be able to work on that you can't do now? So that's kind of the ultimate projection of the gains. So that was number one. Let's pick another one. Let's work on number two. There's cloud providers who are not working at AWS on the call. I apologize. I just picked one. So we're moving all applications to the cloud, specifically AWS. What can you do for us? So let's try this one. We'll do one more and then we'll kind of open it up. So again, you are looking, and I realize these are broad generic statements, but you're looking for the gains. Right? So we're moving all our applications to the cloud, specifically AWS. What can you do for us? And of course, imagine you are working for a company that can do something. We can help with that. Okay, how would you measure your success, right? What does success look like, says Ashley. Art, yes. What's the biggest impact when this is fully up and running? All right. Yeah, we can help with that. What are you hoping to gain from this? Okay, David says we can help with that. We have X, Y, Z, or Z solutions to do that painlessly. All right, anyone else? All right, there's like 70 of you out there, so you have more than 5 responses. Let's prioritize. What are some scaling needs we can address? Okay. So some of you are still drifting a little bit into your current situational. Pain is almost always like future driven. It's why it's a little fuzzier. So now I'm going to put 2 more up there. Just pick one of them, whichever one you like. And this will be the last piece of interaction for this. So either choose number 3 or number 4 and preface your response with 3 or 4. So customer experience data is doubling every year. Marketing wants to harness and use that data. Now, what do you have for us? Or we are looking for a way to incorporate super advanced AI and machine learning into our customer-facing apps. Thoughts? So number 3 or number 4, just pick one. And again, give me a gain driven response or question that you can use. Okay. I'm glad you brought that up. We can absolutely help you. What are you hoping to gain by using AI? Okay. What are you envisioning once you have the AI and ML in place? All right. Yes, we can. Others who have been in this situation have seen high productivity. How does this compare with your future goals? I like that one, Art. Okay. Right. Sila, sorry if I massacred your name. Number three, what goals is marketing hoping to accomplish with this data? Okay. What kinds of initiatives does the marketing team want to accomplish with this data in the future? Okay. Corinne says doubling. Great. Can you give an example of what marketing would need to know in 6 months' time? Yeah. So again, notice the emphasis on things that are happening in the future. And as we kind of bring this section to a halt, let me give you a little, CIO executive tip. One is when you're doing discovery, try not to use the word pain with your customers until they use it first. Up until if I was your customer, used the word pain, I have issues, I have challenges, whatever you might want to use. But a sales engineer using the word pain does make you sound kind of salesy. But once I, as a customer, use it, it's okay. And then also, although we are talking about gains, I'd encourage you to be a little more, subtle about it. And instead of asking, what do you hope to gain by doing this, kind of rephrase it and take the word pain and gain out of your customer facing vocabulary, even though you might be using them and categorizing them internally. And you'll find that works pretty well. And this applies to most parts of the world, and especially if you ever work in APAC. Pain and gain can be somewhat contentious words out there. So let's kind of recap where we are at this point before we do some games at the end. So we talked about the sales engineer definition of pain. That's latent, current, and vision pain. A little bit about do nothing incorporated as well, and 41% drained leak that comes out of the pipeline. We just worked on the emotional power of discovering gain and how it can help you open up an additional 20% of deals and take out do nothing incorporated and also make life very difficult for your competitors. So the last thing we're going to do is a little bit of a practical experiment and look at our own individual tolerances of pain and gain. So again, we're going to do this one in the chat. I'm going to type in games here so everybody knows. We're going to do 3 experiments. Okay. And these center around what psychologists call the endowment effect. And the endowment effect means that once we have something, we actually put a greater value on it than if we don't, which sounds kind of counter to some of the things that we might actually encounter in real life. And that also we don't necessarily have logical risk taking and risk analysis decisions. There's an old truism in sales that says people buy emotionally and then defend their decision with logic and facts afterwards. And you know what? If selling into gain is not the most emotional thing that you can do, I'm not sure what is. So let's look at the endowment effect and the risk profile here. Okay? So question number 1 for you. You have a choice. Yeah? I'm feeling in a super generous mood, and this is make-believe money. I'll state that up front so I don't get sued. A choice. Either I can give you $20 or we flip a coin 50-50. And if you win, you get $50. Okay? So statistically, it makes sense for you to flip the coin. However, what would you choose? So either put $20 or $50 or flip, right? So flip 20, 20, 20. Click 20. I'll take the 20, right? So people will take the sure thing, the 20, rather than have a chance statistically at getting the $25, right? Monica wants $50, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's a small amount of money. And it's probably about 40-60 there. It might also be 50-50. So that's experiment number one, right? Not a great deal at stake there. So now let's go on, right? So now we'll make this real money. You have a choice. I give you $2,000 or we flip a coin for $5,000. So 2,000 or you're going to flip the coin. Right? Almost everybody says 2,000, right? A couple of 5,000s. Right. Ashley says, flip. I didn't have any money before. Corinne says 2,000. It's more than I have now. All right, there we go. Okay. So notice the ratio has changed. So from being like 50-50, it's now probably like 90-10. So people certainly have different perspectives on risk and safety, and it's part of their behavioral patterns, it's part of their cultural patterns. And we could keep on playing this game and raise the stakes. And I could say, I give you 2,000, we flip a coin for $10,000. Now, what would you do then? Because it's a 2,000 sure thing or a 50-50 chance of getting $10,000. So there's all kinds of games you can play with that. We're going to do one last thing before we pause and recap the seminar and take some questions at the end. And this is experiment number 3. Yeah. So this one, I'm going to set it up a little bit. So you walk into a coffee shop and you order a fancy coffee. So you're going up Starbucks or wherever. It's one of those coffees that takes 30 seconds just to explain what it is. Your expectations are it's going to take 5 minutes to get your drink, right? That's average. So in the chat, I'd like you to give me 2 numbers. One is, at what point is the wait so long that it becomes a pain? Right? So 5 minutes is your expectation. At what point is the wait so long it becomes pain? Right? So is it 10 minutes, 12 minutes? And then part B is, at what point is the wait short enough that it's actually a gain? So we're all over the place here. So wow, Jennifer's a very patient person, right? 15. So we've got, so is Wilmani and Pam. Okay. Right. Nikki says 8. Corinne says 10. Dennis says 3 minutes for a gain. Right. Jennifer 15. Monica 6, 10. Ashley Payne 12. 4. 30 minutes too long. 20 minutes. Curie says, I love good coffee. All right. We'll question whether that's Starbucks or not. 6, 10 and 4, 7 and 3, 2, 10 and 5, 8 and 3. All right. So you see, everyone is all over the place in terms of where their different ratios are for what's a pain and what's a gain. Now, this also kind of proves that, a gain is not necessarily the opposite of a pain. And kind of on the coffee shop example here, if I walk in, let's say at Starbucks, my expectation also is that I've got my my app on the phone, and I open up my Starbucks app and I tap and I pay, right? And that's good. Now, if I go in and I tap and the transaction doesn't work, either because I don't have enough money, it needs to be reloaded, the system is down, whatever, and it takes me a while to pay for my coffee, that's a pain. But if the app actually works and I pay for it, that's not a gain, right? So a gain is not always the opposite of a pain. So what we've learned here is a few things. So everyone has a different tolerance for risk, and everyone has a different set point, if you like, for how sensitive they are to pain. Some of you said, anything more than 5 minutes is a pain, and some of you said 15 minutes is a pain. And the 10 minutes, I don't know, you sit there and talk to somebody extra and do your email or something. Little less leeway on the gain itself, but it is intensely personal, which is something as you deal with your clients, you need to figure out. So let's kind of bring all that together now and do a recap of our 3 points. So the first one is we had the sales engineer definition of pain, right? Latent current and vision. Secondly, we looked at the emotional power of discovering gain. And instead of drilling down on current state and pains and things that are not working, we still need to do that. Also, though, we need to add in what's going to happen in 6, 12, 18 months, once this goes away, what are some other cool, amazing things that you, your team, your company will be able to do, right? That's the gains, the puppy dogs, the unicorns, the sunsets, the walks in the beach. And then lastly, we did this little practical experiment. They seem very simplistic, but what it does teach you is that people do have different risk profiles and people do have different perceptions of pain and of gain. So we link that back to the Monday morning behaviors. What are the things that I would like you to take away from it? So one is we've got that 80-20 split. So 80% of deals are driven by pain, but 20% are driven by gain. So if you can find the gain, you automatically get engaged in 20% more deals that are likely to close, right? Not a bad thing. 41% of deals that hit the top end of the pipeline get won by DNI, Do Nothing Incorporated. And if you just keep doing the things that you're doing now. Selling for pain, allied with selling for gain, helps you capture some of that DNI leakage and brings it back into the pipeline. And if you're the vendor that's smart enough to do it, very often the customer will reward you for that, and you will actually get the lead in the transaction and be able to go ahead. We also have the different kinds of pain, right? The latent, the current, the vision pain, categorize the ways they are, and look at your pipeline, see how it's going to be. And then lastly, when you are seeking gain, you need to come up with your own way of doing it, right? So the time travel thing is a favorite one of mine. I use it with my clients. We had one recently where a client said, no, John, no, we need to improve our calls with executives, right? They're terrible. And instead of started launching in and telling them about, the executive connection workshop we have and everything else, we spent a little bit of time analyzing what was the problem. And then we asked a magical question. So let's imagine it's 6 months from now, and suddenly all your calls with executives are going great and you're getting second calls and you're building better relationships. What will that then enable your team to do in addition to hopefully closing more deals or accelerating deals through the pipeline? And the VP of sales just lit up. They were so excited and started telling us about all the other plans they had for their organization. So that's the power of selling into gain and not just trying to solve pain. So if you just take those three things away from you as a result, as an endpoint of this seminar, look for the gain, think about the 80-20 split, and be aware of that 41% leakage of Do Nothing Incorporated. Actually treat DNI as another competitor in your deals. It's going to make a major difference, not only to the velocity and the quality of deals in the pipeline, but also the perception that people have you of being that rock star, world-class sales engineer. So that is it, folks. That is, forget about the pain, look for the gain. Contact information is on here. That QR code will take you to our website, and I will encourage questions. Sammy, either if we want to have questions live, if you want to turn on people's mics, or we answer them through the chat, however you want to do it. We have 7 or 8 minutes left.
All right, folks, if you have any questions, be sure to drop them in the Q&A box. We haven't had any come through quite yet, but we'll give people a minute here. If you guys want to ask any questions, we got a couple extra minutes.
Yeah, you can turn on the mics too, if that's possible, if people just want to ask it live.
If you want to do that, you can raise your hand and I can allow you to talk.
Right.
I don't do that quite yet. Perhaps you were just so thorough. Any questions?
All right, come on, folks. Don't be shy. I didn't sail around the world just to get no questions.
This is true. All right. How do you manage the customer who gets frustrated with the questioning?
Sure. So one, if your customer's getting frustrated with questioning, you need to do a little bit of introspection and figure out, have I been bombarding them with questions? Um, Certainly a lot of discovery calls can turn into what feels like an interrogation. And even if you've got the most well-mannered customer, after you've hit them with 15 or 20 customers, they are going to be tired of questions. So one of the things we actually teach, who was that, Nikki? Is the use of something called a non-question question. Which is, instead of directly asking a question, you can just go, and when the customer responds, you can just go, "Oh, interesting. Never thought about it that way. Tell me more." So what you're doing is just having a regular conversation and encouraging the customer to keep talking without asking them a direct question. If they really don't want to give you information, then you've got to question, are they actually, a worthwhile prospect to start with?
Cool. We have a couple people that raise their hands. So if you're cool with it, I'm going to invite them on to talk and ask their question live.
Sure.
All right, let's see. So we have Kevin. If you are here and want to chat, just go ahead and unmute yourself. And we also have Kayuri.
We have a question
I'm
from
ready.
Ashley, I see in the Q&A
All
while
right.
we're waiting for that.
Kayuri,
So
I want to ask that
That's okay.
question.
Let's open it up to Ashley's question first. I had more of a comment
Okay.
and a
okay.
kudos, but go ahead, Ashley.
So Ashley says, what kind of stats beside the 20% would be compelling to take to sellers to add this to discovery? You know what, Ashley? I've discovered that if you just talk to a rep and just basically say, hey, how would you like to expand your pipeline by 20%? If a rep is not interested in your active pipeline by 20%, if a rep is not interested in doing that, I would move on to another rep. It's a very powerful stat that just sits there by itself. And then also talking about, hey, maybe we could just reduce that 40% leakage to DNI to 35 or 30. And you'll notice there, I took the rep straight to the gain, right? And imagine what would happen if you had these extra deals. So I'm selling the gain to the rep by using that statistic.
All right.
Kira,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, John, great job. What I love about this, because now I'm wearing two hats these days, but like you said, you focused on the emotion, and the way you're asking questions and what you're delving into is really motivating them to change, because it's the emotion that's going to motivate them. So when someone envisions a future and you're painting that picture, after, yes, you've acknowledged the pain, so it's not ignoring the pain, but really helping them paint that future. I think that's a great message I got from today, and it makes me think of the coaching world, where when we work with our clients, it's always about what are the possibilities and opportunities for you. So I made that parallel, and I think it's really powerful here for pre-sales and sales. So just a thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate the kind words.
Okay, I think we had another question come through Q&A. How do you counteract the customer who doesn't want to do discovery, just says, I just want you to show me what you have first. I don't have time for a discovery session.
Yes, that customer. All right. We've all dealt with that customer. So a couple of approaches here, Nikki, and obviously it's very situational. One is, this is where I kick the salesperson, either virtually or physically, under the table, and see if they could step in and be the bad person instead of me. If that doesn't work, a couple of other techniques I'd suggest. One is to have what I would call a pain and gain sheet, almost a PowerPoint slide that has common problems that customers have when they come talk to you, and common gains that they get out of using your stuff, and just say, okay, I can understand that you're obviously a very busy person. Do any of these things I put up here on the screen resonate with you? Because that will help give me some direction before I start. If I've got a little bit more relationship with the customer, I'll actually try and make them feel a little bit guilty. And I'll say something like, that's like, walking into a store and saying, hey, I want to buy a set of golf clubs, or I want to buy a pair of shoes. And, the sales rep is going to ask you some more questions about that rather than just show you, 15 bags of golf clubs or 20 shoes. Or even a doctor, walk in the doctor and say, hey, doctor, I've got a headache, fix it. They're going to ask you some questions as well. So as Nikki, you quoted me, right? So prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. Absolutely. So I'll often go that route and try and make them feel a little bit guilty too.
All right. Well, we are just at the top of the hour. So, in the interest of time, I'm going to recommend that if you guys have any additional questions for John, you can use this QR code to connect with him. I just want to thank you, John, for jumping on and sharing all of that valuable knowledge with us and with everyone who attended the session today. Thanks to everyone who jumped on and attended and interacted with us. We will hopefully see you guys at one of our DemoFest X events coming up in the next couple of months. Other than that, we hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Hey, thank you, everyone.